everyone, and welcome to today's talk, part of the Metamorphosis and beyond. It's a pleasure to meet you all here today. I'm Gregor Samsa, a PhD student at the Department of Near and Middle Eastern Civilization. I want to take a moment to recognize and thank some individuals here. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Dr. Elahe Mir-Djalali, whose support of the Elahe Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies has made this program possible. I also want to thank our mentor, Professor Mohammad Tabakhurdi Targhi, the inaugural director of the Elahe Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies, for supporting the Iranian Studies Students Forum. My sincere thanks also goes to Bilal Hashmi for organizing such an event. Thank you so much. And before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, this land has been the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credits. Today, it continues to be the home of many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We are deeply grateful for the opportunity to gather and work on this land. Now, I will pass the floor to my dear colleague, Dr. Nibsha Kaizad from the Elahe Mir-Djalali Institute of Iranian Studies, who will be moderating today's symposium with us. And before we begin, I want to ask if Professor Tabakhurdi, if you have any remarks or any.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, Nibsha.
Thank you, Nagar John. It's my honor to introduce our artists today, beginning with Banafsheh Erfanian, who is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist. She has worked as an illustrator, painter, muralist, arts educator, and mentor. Her work has been exhibited in Iran, Italy, US, Canada, Russia, China, Japan, and Serbia. She has illustrated many books and has been in art jury panels in Iran, Canada, and the States. Blair Drawson. During his career, Blair illustrated stories and articles for many of the major magazines in the US and Canada. He has produced several books for children, as well as works in animation and a recent graphic novel. He teaches a course in book illustration at OCAD University. And Anson Liaw, who is an American-Canadian illustrator based in Richmond Hill. A graduate of OCAD University, his work explores social, political, and cultural themes. Featured in Lurzer's Archive and Bloomsbury's Illustration, he's earned awards from top art organizations and worked with clients like Time and McDonald's. He also teaches at OCAD, mentoring future artists. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you, Nisha, for the introduction. My name is Banafsheh Erfanian, and I am a multidisciplinary artist. And I wear hats as illustrator, mentor, painter, and also arts educator. So first of all, I want to thank you all for being here, and also people that are tuning in through Zoom. So we are going to actually go through a presentation with you. And the presentation you're about to see is an interdisciplinary project and a sequel to Kafka's Metamorphosis, consisting of illustration practice by Banafsheh Erfanian, Blair Drawson, and Anson Liaw. And literally in the form of sequel and animation by Blair Drawson. So I want to talk about how this project come to be. Kafka's work has always moved me. I relate to how he challenges humans' identity through dark humor. When I was new to Canada, I felt like Kafka's Metamorphosis was calling me, and I knew I had to create some sort of art contributed to it. Back in 2027, I received the newcomer mentorship grant from Toronto Art Council for Kafka's Metamorphosis illustration curatorial practice, and Blair Drawson became my mentor, and I invited Anson Liaw to be one of the artists. And that's how we shaped our collective. This project is, in fact, culturally comparative and intercultural project with different views of uh, white visual artists and two people of color artists. I had no idea before coming to Canada that although my skin is white, I am supposed to be categorized as a woman of color since I was born in the Middle East. That's how we decided to work on this project as a collective. Um, what we have added to Kafka's Metamorphosis, other than our visual interpretation, is we have illustrated a sequel to Metamorphosis written by Blair Drawson. So what is a sequel? A sequel is a literally work that follows an earlier release or continue the original story. Sequels frequently incorporate new plot lines and characters, often with the same settings, which can be used to convey different emotions. So now I want to talk about how the subject matter is related to my Persian background. As a newcomer, one may feel isolated and sometimes unwanted. When I first arrived in Canada, what I had in my hands from back home was a couple of suitcases in which only wasn't I carrying some stuff, but also my culture. A sense of otherness constantly haunts me as an artist. Yet the pressure of this otherness by a hardliner government in Iran has led to severe censorship, causing a sense of becoming a creature that should be avoided or dismissed. And most bizarrely, on top of this suppressing pressure, you are banned if you're a woman. You don't have a voice. Your society is extremely uh, patriarchal. You are alienated, like Gregor Samsa, who is the main character in the Metamorphosis. Now, what happens when this creature immigrates? They say insects are the oldest and most lasting on Earth. The diaspora has to be so strong to get rid of his old skin and wear a new one. He has to go through a metamorphosis. Now, let's get into how is this sequel related to Kafka's Metamorphosis, literally and visually. The sequel continues the story by honing in on the family's life after Gregor's death, with a focus on the sister's metamorphosis by making it even darker in a humorous way when she moves on the disaster quickly and gets married not much longer after her brother's death. The sequel follows the original Metamorphosis events and continues the narration after Gregor's death by focusing on the story of the sister's metamorphosis, which adds to the dark humor of the narrative. The metamorphosis of the sister and how she and the family normalize a disaster is striking. However, Gregor is more relatable and speaks to me. Visually speaking, to illustrate the agony Gregor and his family go through, I needed to create a grotesque milieu for which I designed distorted characters in a satirical way and used sharp scratch lines, and a limited palette of blues and reds and black and white shades, along with newspaper collages, which work as texture counterbalance, while some relatable words stand out and draw the audience attention. Now I want to delve into Kafka's Metamorphosis and a comparison I made with Sadek Hidayat's The Blind Owl reflected in my illustrations. Kafka came from an Ashkenazi Jewish German Prague middle-class family. He was trained as a lawyer and had full-time legal and insurance jobs, with which he was never happy and believed literature was his only calling. He wrote Metamorphosis in 1915. Hedayat was born in Tehran, Iran, in a noble family. He devoted his whole life to studying Western literature and to learning and investigating Iranian history and folklore. In his work, he employs satire to criticize Iranian Islamic culture and writes melancholically about the empire of Iran before Arabs attack, before the Arabs attack. For instance, in Parveen, the daughter of Sasan novel, he describes how savagely Muslim Arabs forced Zoroastrian Iranians to convert to Islam by killing and torturing them, and that Arabs could never dominate the glorious Persian culture and the Farsi language. Hedayat is no doubt one of the pioneers of literary modernism in Persian literature and folklore novel. He translated many novels by Kafka into Farsi. In studying Metamorphosis and making illustrations for it, I found Sadek Hedayat was somehow influenced by Kafka's Metamorphosis in his Blind Owl, which makes sense as they were contemporary. Both the Blind Owl and Metamorphosis offer powerful explorations of the human condition in the face of alienation, absurdity, inexistence, surrealism, dark humor, and the search for meaning in a seemingly meaningless world. While the Metamorphosis focuses on Gregor Samsa's physical transformation into an insect, the Blind Owl employs a more psychological and hallucinatory approach to depict the narrator's descent into madness and despair, both highlighting the dehumanizing effects of modern society and the struggle to maintain a sense of self. In terms of symbolism, while both stories employ symbolism, the Metamorphosis uses Gregor's transformation into an insect as a central symbol of alienation and dehumanization. In The Blind Owl, the owl itself, along with other symbolic elements, contributes to the overall atmosphere of madness and despair and curse. I borrowed the owl in my illustrations from Hedayat's Blind Owl. Now I would like to read you some lines of The Blind Owl. My shadow on the wall was exactly like an owl, hunched over. It carefully read my writings. I wanted to draw those eyes, which were now closed forever, on a piece of paper and keep them for myself. This sensation forced me to action. That is, I did not do this voluntarily. One does not when one is imprisoned with a corpse. This very thought filled me with a special feeling of joy. So this was Blind Owl, and Blind Owl was published around 1937. Okay, now let's jump into slides. So the first slide is actually a portrait of Gregor Samsa metamorphosed into a vermin. Making the illustrations, I kept my palette fairly limited to saturated reds and blues and balanced by neutral beige, creamy, and dull red and blues and newspaper collages. The scratches helped me show the protagonist's inner struggle. Yes. So the second one depicts how Gregor suffers from his 9-to-5 job, every day taking the same train, sitting by himself. You can see the owl's presence, implying Hedayat's Blind Owl. The rail signifies the repetitive path of his life, turning into a vicious cycle, finding a meaning for life. So this one is called Routines. Routines is about a turmoil Gregor experiences. In the background, you can see a scenery of factories as the symbol of capitalism taking over modern life. The owl is hovering in the air. It actually conveys the despair that Gregor is going through. This one is my favorite. So this is called The Clerk Encounters. It shows a situation in which the clerks who were trying to get a hold of Gregor suddenly encounter this huge insect. I use black and white shades and like flesh-like red to illustrate this moment. Next slide. Okay. The clerk chief encounter is called. So in this one, you see a picture of chaos where Gregor has fallen on his back and is struggling. His father is trying to handle the situation, and the chief clerk is about to escape. Again, you see the same palette here. And this one shows Gregor that has managed to get on his feet, and the clerk chief is running for his life. Here you see the surrealistic floating situation, which I like. And in this illustration, which is called His Days, Gregor is sticking to the window captured in his room. Here I used blues and reds in high contrast to create a striking mood. Next slide. Yeah, this one's called I Miss You. This piece is about Gregor and his mother's relationship. She cannot get along with Gregor's situation, so she makes a doll of Gregor and takes it everywhere with her. So in this illustration palette is a little bit different. So I used red, blue, and yellow. So yellow on the mother because it shows the affection he feels for Gregor, and also kind of like love and hate relationship between them. So this one's called Siblings Conversation. So in this illustration, I dominated black to show the emptiness going on between the siblings. And as you can see here, I showed Gregor with just linear white shape. And so it shows that he's isolated from the family. And this one is called We Must Get Rid of It. It refers to Gregor, which is a Bogdan. So the family is having a meeting on how to get rid of the dying Gregor. As you see, there's such a dark humor speaking here. So when the father actually is having a breakdown, nervous, he throws an apple at Gregor, and the apple goes in at his back and makes a nasty wound, and that actually causes his death. Okay, and this one is called Attacking an Apple Munter. So Gregor's father goes through a nervous breakdown and attacks a random apple munter, as the apple reminds the father of how he killed his own son by shooting an apple at Gregor's back, which eventually caused his death. This one is called Regret. So the father regrets killing his son after his conflict with an apple munter. Again, a stalking owl signifies the curse and despair. And with that being said, that will be the end of my presentation. So this picture is a portrait of Kafka. I illustrated this portrait for a children's book written by Carrie Fagan and published by Grandwood Books. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, you're going to notice that the different styles of the three of us are radically quite different, but we're all telling the same story. The story being Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And here's the man right here, Franz Kafka. You know, he wrote one of the most startling opening lines in literature, I would say. So let's just take a look. Gregor Samsa awoke one morning from troubling dreams to discover that overnight he had been transformed into a large insect of some sort. Apparently, in the original German, the large insect is sometimes seen as item of vermin, item of vermin. So, in other words, whatever it is, Kafka himself was not a visual artist, but he was a wordsmith. He allowed our imagination to understand what that item of vermin might be. And in the case of many artists, we have chosen to depict him as indeed a bug, or very often a bug, one kind or another, let's put it that way. So imagine now, Gregor Samsa is a young clerk. He's still, I think, in his 20s, or he's not an old man. He's not in his middle age, that's for sure. And he's been working as a clerk, and he's the breadwinner for his family. So he's basically supporting his father, his mother, his sister, and a couple of domestic servants, because they're kind of a little bit upper bourgeois family in some unknown city or unstated city in middle Europe. So he wakes up in this state, and he realizes that, well, there's a couple of things that he realizes right away. First of all, his temptation is to deny it all. He just wants to go back to sleep. He'll wake up, it'll be all better. And in his heart of hearts, he knows he can't do that. The other thing that he's so aware of is that he's going to be late for work. He is so diligent as a clerk that, and here's where the element of a kind of a comedy of manners enters the story, I think. As horrific and as dark as it is, there's an underlying current of humor to it, but of a very special kind. So here he is, he's worried about his job, and he wants to do the best that he can possibly do. So he's thinking, well, I'll just catch a later train. And he realizes that he can't get out of bed very easily because this new body of his won't permit it. So he starts rocking back and forth in an effort to propel himself out of bed. And as he's doing that, he hears the front doorbell ring. And he's actually able to hear what is going on. And he finds that it's his supervisor has come to the front door demanding to know why Gregor hasn't shown up for work. And his mother has opened the door, and she loves her son very much. And she's, making every excuse under the sun for him. Well, I think he may have just caught a bit of the flu. He's definitely slept in. He's never done this before. The father enters, he tries to placate everything, and he says, "Oh, thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time with us." And Greta, the sister, she's the most practical of all. And she goes to his bedroom and taps on the door and says, Gregor, your boss is here. Get up, get up. And it's just around at that same time where Gregor has been trying to get himself out of bed, and he finally propels himself out just at that instant. He falls onto the floor, and it makes an audible thunk. So everybody hears this, and they go to his door, which has been locked, and they're all speaking to him, and he is speaking back to them. But what he doesn't realize is that while his own voice and his own inner thoughts are clear and familiar to him, to outsiders, to everybody else, it's the voice of an animal, of a beast, of something unspeakable, and definitely not something that is understood. So again, that is one of the underlying tragedies of the story, is that not only has he become this loathsome creature, but he cannot make himself understood. So he's alienated at least by twice now, but there's another alienation coming in soon as well. Anyway, so here is where Banafsheh has already touched on this episode, where the chief clerk, who has the mother has fainted, the sister has run away, the father has reduced to kind of a tearful bowl of ectoplasm on the floor. And the boss is running away, and Gregor goes after him, saying, "Chief clerk, please bear with me. I'll be in. I may be a little late, but I'll be in. I am not a shirker. I never have been. You know that I've always been a hard worker." And he goes on in this vein. Again, not appreciating the fact that, first of all, his appearance is utterly beyond the pale, and so is his voice. So it's all going to waste. The trauma of this, of course, has hit the family very badly. The father has had high hopes for his son. The mother can't bear to see him. She faints every time she sees him. The only one who seems a little more down to earth is the sister, Greta. And she remembers that his favorite food is bread in sweet milk. And so she brings him a bowl of that to somehow console him. And he finds he cannot stand it. It's become anathema to him. He just can't bear it. And so she is taken back by this. And she says, well, if he doesn't like good food, if he doesn't like nice food, then maybe he likes really awful food, like waste and horrible stuff. So she scrapes the walls under the kitchen sink and the toilet and around the, just all the kind of thing that we would sweep up and throw away. She gathers that up and delivers it to him on a plate, and he gobbles it right up. So here's another level of revulsion now. Not only does he look bad and sound bad, he also smells bad too, by the way, but he eats bad. So let's just move right on. So one of the benefits of what has happened to Gregor is that he can scurry up and down the walls very quickly, and he can even go across the ceiling. But when he does, he leaves a little trail of mucus behind him. And Greta sees this, and she's a smart girl. She puts it all together, and she says, I want to make it as comfortable for him as I can. So she persuades her mother to help her move the large items of furniture out of his room so that he's free to roam at will. And that's what's happening here. Gregor, by the way, is under the tablecloth on the sofa there. This is further down in the story now. Banafsheh had already mentioned the apple. What has happened is the mother and Greta have cleaned the apartment, and including Gregor's bedroom. Gregor has been up on the ceiling and is unbeknownst, the mother is not aware of this until finally she does glance up, she sees him, and she falls into a dead faint. And poor Greta, has to haul her mother out into the hall to administer to her. And just as this is all happening, the father comes home. He's been away. He's bereft. He's totally at the end of his patience. And again, he's terribly, terribly disappointed in his son. And he flies into a rage. And he chases his son around the dining room table. And while doing, he picks up the apple and throws it. And you can see the apple lodged in Gregor's carapace there, where it festers. And I think you'd already mentioned that it contributes to his ultimately to his demise. So, and here, so to make ends meet, now that Gregor is not bringing in money, the father has decided, they have quite a spacious apartment apparently, and he decided to rent out one of the rooms to these three scholars. They're all bearded gentlemen. They're all very fastidious in their habits. They love cleanliness and won't permit anything, won't live in anything other than spotless conditions. So they've moved in, and they quite love the place, and they love Greta's music. Greta is a very gifted violinist, and Gregor also loves her music. And there's a passage in the story that is quite poignant where he talks to himself and he says, How can they think I am such a monster when I have the capacity to enjoy such beauty as this music? And he's so taken by the music and by his own thoughts that he wanders out into the hall, completely forgetting himself, and is, of course, witnessed by these guys. And they have this reaction. The mother faints again. The father runs in trying to make things better. And Greta cannot face anything, but she retreats into her music, and she won't even look at the scene. And she's, by the way, she's really losing her patience with Gregor, and is now saying it's time to get rid of it. So now we're jumping right to the very end of Metamorphosis. So this would be the last scene in the book where Gregor has died. He has died of a broken heart and of the apple, and he's kind of shriveled all up. He's lost all his color. He's gone into kind of a shell of himself, and finally expires. He is swept up and put into a garbage can, into an ash can. And that basically is the end of Gregor. So the family now moves to the park. They take a day off. They have a little holiday. They go to the park, and it happens to be springtime, and the blossoms are all happening. Trees are in blossom, and they feel much lighter. And Greta does a little dance around the bushes, and she's so happy to be where she is. The parents look at her and they say, "My, but we've produced such a beautiful daughter. It's time to find a suitable husband for her." And these are virtually almost the last words in the story. Time to find a suitable husband for Greta. When I read this, I thought, did she ever find a suitable husband? And what was their life together like? So I wrote a sequel that Banafsheh has already mentioned. So I call it the Sisters Metamorphosis. So let's just move right on to that. Oh, and I'm going to just get there. Okay. So she has become middle-aged. She has her suitable husband. There he is. They have a dog. They have a car. They have a two-story house. She still plays the violin, but they don't have children. We have chosen not to have children for reasons I think you might guess why. And she is addressing Gregor. She's got her little laptop there, and she's writing a long letter to Gregor. And that's what this is all about. So let's just move right on. And she says, "And thank you very much for your endowment. When in your will, you left enough money for me to attend the Conservatory of Music, where I was very happy. And I had a lot of fun, and I met people like me who loved music and loved to have fun. And we were full of joy. Our hearts were full of joy. But then the war came along, and my friend Wolfgang was called up. But he chose the artillery because it started with art. However, I was left with dark, dark dreams and regrets. And they lasted for many, many years. And I contacted a psychiatrist who wanted to know what my dreams were all about. And I told him of one. I said, I dreamt that you and I were walking along the river, and you, Gregor, jumped into the river and disappeared. And I jumped in after you. And I found that the water was full of dirt and loathsome things. It was totally polluted, and I couldn't see anything. I could only feel these things. But I thought I found your head. It was a hairy object, and I thought it was your head. And when I carried it to the surface, I found it wasn't you at all, but a drowned rat. And on top of it all, Mother went quite mad. She bought a little doll that she called Little Gregor, and she cooed to it, and she laughed, and she sang to it, and she talked to it, and she slept with it. And even during my wedding ceremony, she was carrying on this way. It must have been alarming for the guests, and I know that I was very embarrassed. Okay, so now we've jumped all the way to the very end of the sister's metamorphosis. She is wrapping up her message to Gregor, and she's saying, in spite of all the heartbreak, Christian has been a suitable husband. I love him for all his warts and faults, and he loves me, and we love each other. We're snug like the two bugs in a rug. And so I have them in the matrimonial bed, but we also see the disturbing presence of Gregor in the bed as well. So just want to move this on. Oh, okay, so this is the poster that I did. My son and I worked on an animation, a 54-minute animation on the same story, Metamorphosis. We changed the characters a bit from the book. This is the first poster that I did, and he didn't like it. He wrote me back and he said, "Dad, you're letting the cat out of the bag." And I realized he's right. So I did that one. He liked that one a lot better. So I just want to, if we have time, there's another 2.5 minutes of the animation. There it is. There it is. And 2.5 minutes. This is the trailer for the 24-minute animation that we did.
What's the matter with me? Am I terribly ill or something?
I demand to know why Mr. Gregor Samsa has not appeared at his workstation.
Why, he's not feeling very well. A touch of the flu, a slight fever, I think.
That was the voice of an animal!
Gregor, get up! Get up!
Our son must be gravely ill. Greta, call the doctor.
I worry that I have injured what I used to call my son, but which is now some sort of thing.
We must get rid of it. That thing, it must go.
He has driven away the gentleman tenants. His place of employment will not have him again.
Oh, my Gregor, my Gregor!
Gregor is our little secret. Our hush, hush.
Amazing. I'm very playful.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for making this event happen. I remember when I first got the call from Banafsheh and Blair to do this, I was like extremely nervous. Like I'm nervous to meet new people always, but take on a new project is always, I got to put my head around it. But this one kind of struck me a little bit more than usual, because I know it deals with, to me, I think, perfect for illustration, perfect for doing art. To me, it has to carry a story. Otherwise, just a drawing. I have a tendency of like, it's hard for me to just draw something just to draw it. to me, it has to kind of say something. If someone doesn't get it right away, it has to kind of eventually make people feel something at the very least. I think Neosha will probably ask more questions about that later. You'll know what I mean. Those who didn't attend the show, it was a great show. There's some images from the show of Blair's work, Banafshe's work, and a little bit of my work as well. Why do I make art? I think this became the reason why I make art. To me, I think growing up in life, journeying through life, from childhood to adulthood, from a student, like Blair students here, to as we live and live, we experience a lot of breakthrough moments. Usually there's a lot of hardship, a lot of chaos, which I think really connects with Kafka's Metamorphosis. There's a lot of chaos, as you've seen in Banafshe's work, with her mark making, and mine too, and Blair with his, even right at the end, you saw that beautiful metamorphosis, a lot of different marks, a lot of different images. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. This image here beside my quote is for an illustration I did for an invitational exhibition in Turkey, at the university in Turkey, dealing with no to violence against women. I was very honored to be part of it, but I really enjoy using images that are well known, like a heart in this case, not sure if you can actually see a heart, but the whole head is actually a heart. Women, to me, is like the soul of society. Without women, there would be nothing. So I think that's perfect to represent it, but also the heart is under attack. So you're striking human and women, and you're hurting everybody. So it's a very nightmarish image, and it's open to interpretation of what else you can find within any image. In this case, is about violence against women, but it's a grander scale than that. There's a lot more meaning, and that's the fun about illustration. There's a lot storytelling. Is you find things, you feel things. It's almost like a personal discovery, and that's what I kind of want in my work. So there's a great quote and great thinking by a great designer, illustrator named Milton Glaser. I'm sure you've seen his work. If you don't know who he is, don't know his work. Anyone knows the I Love logo, I Love New York logo, and the famous Bob Dylan poster, amongst many, many others. It's one of my heroes. I think anyone studying illustration, studying graphic design will know who he is. If you don't, you should. But he had a quote, and it's also my belief that everything is connected in society, in life. There's no unconnected events in human experience. Everything is connected. But if you're an artist, discovering what those connections are, an everyday object, everyday gesture by the ocean, just this, to me, it's like saying something. May not say anything to anybody, but to me, that's how I look at things. And you look at Kafka's Metamorphosis, these chapters of illustration, they're all situational, but I want to put more to it than that. So, but finding what those connections are is personal, and that's where you become creative. And that's a challenge always. You can always discover something. I'll try to address some of these thoughts. I think Banafsheh and Blair has done it very well. I may not cover all of them, but we have time to answer questions at the end in terms of how I work, what I did to capture an emotion, and so forth. But you see some of the list of questions there, which Leila kind of helped with as we're training for this session. She brought up these points, and it's perfect. To me, it's the takeaway emotions, or takeaway. What do you walk away from when you come out of this room? How do you become changed in a way as human beings, and dealing with people and working with people, or collaborating with people, or just meeting people and seeing someone on the street, meeting someone for the very first time, have a conversation with them. Hopefully you see something different in people through this meeting we have today. And even in my illustrations, or any illustration for that matter, Uh, Metamorphosis is a very complicated story to me. It's to me, I have it in white there. To me, it's a relevant, discerning investigation of human existence. That's what I believe. Love, it's absurd, like he's a creature, but I think there's a deeper sense of connection to our own existence in life than what we see. So I try to do that in my work. I try to put myself in people's shoes, and my shoes, and people's experiences. When I illustrate, I try to talk to people. I try to investigate, research, but I try to really get to know someone's point of view and how they have lived life or experienced something. For example, when I was asked to do something for in 2009 after the presidential election in Iran, was the Green Movement, and I had students in OCAD saying, okay, university saying, you should illustrate something about that. You should illustrate something about that. All of a sudden, I got a strange invite from a guy that named himself Greenbird. And I have no idea who he is until I found out later who he is. It's my friend on Facebook now. He's a photographer in Iran, and Morteza Masjidi. That's his name. And he invited me to do this. And I didn't know if I should do this or not. That was some scam. I got this email, called himself Greenbird. I was actually freaking out. And then all of a sudden, I noticed he goes, Anita Kuntz is doing it, not a famous illustrator, and such and so forth. I'm like, really? So I talked to Anita, and she goes, yeah, you should do this. And so I did it. I became one of, I think, 150 posters. I was actually in the School of Visual Arts, New York, gallery. I did it, but I had to talk to people because you can't really find things out until you actually talk to people. I talked to a lot of Iranian students. They told me what's going on, and I did something about kind of like Iran versus Iran situation. It's all in the head. But so I put myself in someone else's experiences, what's going on in Iran. I found out a lot. So that's the fun of being an illustrator. You find out things, you discover things. When I do Metamorphosis, these characters are just not characters. They're actually everyday people we see in life, or people we've experienced not so good in many ways. This is was used for the poster, but it's the scene where the father's chasing Gregor around, and he's very upset at him, and he's trying to shoo him away, I guess, or punish him, but you kind of see what's going on in the father. There's layers of information. Maybe he's always kind of dissatisfied, very hard on Gregor. I don't know. It's what I think. Maybe there's a sense of like me being Gregor, but I was bullied. So it's all these things I'm borrowing from my experiences, trying to stay true to the story, but also add my own input about what's going on in society. What's going on in people's fathers, people you see, people, abusive people, or people that are angry. It looks like he's got several expressions, the father. He's either happy, laughing, he's upset, he's frowning, he's frustrated, and if you look at how I did him, he's a silhouette in black, but I use white because you can't miss black and white. You see what's going on, it pops out. I used pencil crayon, a little bit of Caran d'Ache watercolor in there, and to really heighten the contrast, but also have these soft tones to give it got human soft feel. Plus, it's more intriguing. I remember Blair saying, and he goes, I love the sharp edges. And that helped me when we were critiquing our very first few illustrations, because that sharp edge allows me to have the other parts very chaotic, very loose, very flowy, but you freeze frame in this moment of activity of abuse and attack. You see what's going on in there, in the shapes, the silhouette. You see, I was telling Neosha earlier when she walked in, and I met her for the first time in person, and you notice the nose, but it looks like doors, but it's also saying layers of, when we live, we have layers of stories. We're built in with so many experiences. You're constantly changing. So I have the titles of all Metamorphoses, actually number 3, but you're constantly changing. You're in a state of flux. You're always juxtaposing things in your life, you're learning new things, you're building up a library of stuff. At the same time, it looks like an X-ray of, looks like bones almost. The father, it looks like his death. At least it represents that to Gregor. It's the end of his, how he knew his father, what the relationship they had as humans. How I designed Gregor, it's almost round, almost childlike, almost like a innocent, it's round, circle, it's friendly. But inside, you actually see him in there. But you actually really look, squint, you see his face and he's still human, yet he isn't. And he's not that intimidating. He's not that big, actually. The father's actually bigger than him. His father's head is almost the size of him. So I have these kind of strange kind of like dynamics going on. And hopefully you feel something. I mean, you connect to, like, I've been there before. I've been bullied before. Even though it's for Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, you see your life in there. That's my hope in any illustration. It has to carry some meaning that connects with people in a relevant way. It's almost like your own personal discovery, which is very rewarding to me if that is true when students like Blair students here going to school and learn about illustration. How do I find my way to communicate with people? How do I put myself in there? And that's what I want my students to do, to find their own path. So this project is perfect for doing that, for me to emphasize these characters in a different way. Here's some process where I'm actually cutting out the characters after drawing within them. And yeah, so again, see this working here. Closer up, close look and personal, right up the father's head and face. And I love designing characters. It's a little scary to me because it's very familiar to me. Drawing, I actually see the kid that bullied me in public school, and it's like, wow, he's in there. But he'll never know, but I know, right? So, and this is the part where he's, I was trying to make it kind of epic. He's changing this insect, but he's still human. It's like a nightmare. I'm inspired by horror stories, movies, things I see that are monstrous, and this kind of just came about. But at the same time, there's this sort of like sunny hope in there, like he's trying to go to work, like Blair's like, he's trying to hope everything's gonna be okay. I'm late, so I put the clock in there, and I have all these things going on in there. He's trying to get out of this room, but he can't. The whole thing's kind of like a doorway, but the doorway kind of looks like a book. It's a story. The book's about to close in on him, and his story's about to end. His story, as he once was a provider, worker for his family, is over, and it's pretty scary to me. Really, you lose the sense of relevance in your existence with your family, to provide for them and to have them kind of look at you as a human being that's really important. So here's some rough work sketches. I'm trying to decide where things go. Where am I going to have line work? Where am I going to have more looseness, more tightness? It's a very laborious project, but it's really fun to me. So you see different sides of him as a small insect. He's changing. He's getting bigger, and he's taking over the whole room eventually, right? So another close-up look. Here's him trying to go, imagine himself trying to get through the door of work. And he's actually like a man figurative in the doorway, but you look at his head, he's actually can imagine that, seeing that, so afraid that people can discover who he is. It's very numbing to me. I was telling the ocean when I came in, like, don't you have those dreams where you're in bed and you woke up and it's like something's happened, but you can't you're paralyzed. So I try to make that feeling of like clenched fist, white knuckles, and he's like can't move. But he is very active. Like he's an insect moving out of control, but him as a human, he can't. He's frozen in time. It's the last bit of human he has in there is to say, I got to go to work, but he actually can't. It's really, really scary to me. It's a very frightening story. As much as there's some humor in it, I look at it more of a dark side to me. In this case, he's sharing a moment in the washroom with Greta, but I'm always hinting what's going to happen with the sequel. What would happen to Greta? But looks like Greta's still human here, but I kind of made it on purpose. I was going to make the shape of Greta like this, as human, and the other part transparent. But no, I'm going to make it like she's almost mimicking like an insect herself. What's going to happen to her later? We don't know. I never got to that. We saw what Blair kind of did, but if I got to that, my side probably would have been very different, like all three of us are. But what's going to happen to Greta as she is living her life? Is she going to have, it's a bit of a curse. What's going to happen to her because of how close and how much time she spent with Gregor as he's transforming and transformed into an insect. So here she is giving food to him and he's rejecting, but almost like is it Gregor or is it her? Or is it like kind of this sort of shifting shared moment? We don't know, but it's very scary to me, what's going on. The story seems humorous, absurd, lighthearted, but to me, it has a lot of relevance to what's going on in society. As we connect with people, as we connect with a sense of loss, as we connect with our very last meal, maybe. I think very, very dark things when I'm illustrating this, because I'm trying to imagine myself as Gregor losing his place in society and losing. I was talking to a friend I play ball hockey and we're always sharing conversations. And one guy, I always remember what people say. One person said to me was, yeah, when people die, they forget about you at some point. I felt so sad when I said that. When the person said, yeah, they just forget about you. It's the truth, Nancy. I said, no, really? No. I think we all want to be remembered for something. So this story of Gregor losing his place and sense of relevance to me is like so scary. How I think we all want to be remembered for something, what we did, what we stood for, how we provided, how we worked, how we collaborate with people, how we help people. I think that's what's important is what is your legacy? Does Gregor have a legacy? I think he does. But in this story, it seems like it's very bewildering. And it seems like it's very, I'm not sure that really actually is the case. At least that's how I felt anyway. Here's another scene. Imagine like you're an insect, eating off the floor practically. It's like, geez, my goodness, it's below everything. And there's the sister kind of like there, but he's stooped so low, and the food, the aroma, to me, there's an opportunity to kind of allude right into the head of what Gregor is actually really feeling. You can see him, if you squint, you're actually at the show, looking at it physically, you can see his whole family in there. You can see him kind of remembering the times. And so the food is kind of like the aroma. It could take you to something. It's like, it's an opportunity for the steam or the smell that kind of go right and waft right into the face. So as a takeaway for you, if you had a moment where you remember a happy moment or a sad moment, you smell your coffee, you might think, oh my God, I remember this person. And that particular flavor of coffee maybe means something. So much as this is a Gregor and Greta situation, for you as a person like in the society, or if you have a memory with somebody, you may look at food differently now. You might taste things differently. Oh, I remember. Right. So it's a hint that look at everything as an opportunity in society that it could connect with you personally. Hopefully it's educational for you that way, in terms of looking at illustrations, not just my illustration, any illustration that has that second side to it or third side to it or open to interpretation opportunity to it. This is the last image. It's very chaotic. It's just sisters like dusting him away, but dusting what away? His life is still there. Like he's dilapidated. He's all over the place, but still trying to hang on the suitcase. He's still trying to work. He's still trying to. It's kind of humorous, but it's kind of very frightening at the same time, right? So it's like the dust that you see, the pattern of dust, you see him, his family's relevance, all intertwined with the broom and this sort of frightening, these marks going all over the place. And yeah, so that's why I enjoy doing this, because I get to kind of hang on to something, right? I want you guys to hang on to memories as you have them. And as you meet with people, and may never see them again, but you have this memory of them, right? So every activity, every situation, every gesture, like you're observing something. As an illustrating student, you're observing, you're drawing something, but you're observing how can I put a feeling in a story in there? What can you do? So I love integrating things. So that's why I ended with this line by Daniel Wilson: when you grow, things grow strong, you integrate. So if you look at society, if we integrate things together, we grow stronger. People can have more empathy, can have more strength in dealing with situations in life. You might see people differently. You won't assume. People have behavioral issues where you go, oh, that person's dressed this way, so they're this. But, well, that person's not happy because of this. He's grumpy and he's this, and I don't like that. Oh, maybe you will like him because, or her, because maybe there's something going on in that person's life. Maybe you'll look at and you'll investigate someone differently, or you collaborate with someone differently. Maybe society be a better place, be less wars in the world, or less conflicts. People understand each other a little bit more. Just from looking at an illustration and say, what is going on in Gregor's dad's head? What happened to him? Or Gregor himself, right? So hopefully, as much as educational for me, hopefully this meeting and my illustrations and Banafsheh's illustrations and Blair's was educational for you. And even if you don't become artists, look at illustration, look at art differently, feel things about people, and embrace people's flaws or people's behavior in a different way. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Paul.
Very deep philosophical.
Yeah, thank you. That's how
and I like the way the distinctive artistic styles of all three of you, sort of so distinctive. You're telling the same, sort of recounting the same phenomenon, same experience. But what I was thinking, if I may start a question, I thought of this as simultaneity of humanity and insecticity. That is, they are together and they sort of, the good and bad are always together and they coexist and reinforce each other. They help each other to grow. And I saw those distinctively in the way you presented your.
Yeah. I look at insects differently now.
Yeah, me too.
After doing this project,
I go and kiss them.
I always did, but now I really do. Right? So,
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentations and for sharing your beautiful drawings with us. They're really striking. Each of you capture different elements of the story, different emotions. I think even, I've heard your thoughts before. And as Ustad said, I would even say that, Anson, while you seem to capture the horror and the monstrous, Blair, you seem to lean towards the humor in the story, which absolutely is still there. And Banafsheh, I heard you say, just as we were leading up to the event, that you maybe draw yourself in a lot of the images of Gregor. So maybe you there's definitely that element of the story where we're all supposed to see ourselves in it. And so, and all of these are elements of the story. They're all so prominent in your work. So I really, it's fantastic the way it comes together. I wanted to know if there are any questions in the room for our artists, and there are some online. I want to turn first to the audience, please.
One thing that I was thinking as we were going through the story again and again is that this mirrors what happens in many families. The parents give birth to a child, and they have their hopes and their dreams. And the child becomes something completely different that they never imagined. And in the case of gay people, they are often shunned for it. The parents simply cannot accept that this lovely baby turned into this gay person. And if there was strong religious or conviction, it may be like a Gregor. It may be that, their reaction can be that strong.
And
If I may just say something, yeah, that's a very, very, very good point, Tom. If in the reading of Metamorphosis, it becomes clear that there really is a nobility about Greg, but it is, he's been making the breadwinner for the family. He's been supporting the family and all of that. There's that part of it, but there's also this aspect about, the man has a beautiful soul. He talks about this painting that he's in love with, The Lady in Furs. He talks about the beauty of his sister's violin playing, and so he's aware of finer things. He's a sensitive person. He's a sensitive soul. There's richness there. There's good stuff within him, and yet this thing comes along, and everyone is blinded to the nobility of him because of, like we tend to do. We judge by superficial appearances. And with all of the stuff that comes with that, we can see the consequence of it in the world today. You don't have to look very far at all, do we, to see how, really what a horror show we're really on the verge of creating here in this world. So I don't know. Does anybody else want to say anything about this? I feel like I've said enough. Yes.
About what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my point of view, I just had some lunch with a friend. I was showing him photographs of my father's family who were Czech and Jews. And you can't separate Kafka without the Holocaust. Because don't forget, the Germans called the Jews German. Now, how specific do you have to get? So my father got out of Austria, Vienna in 1939. I'm the product. 25 years of therapy. I have 3 brothers, none of them, not any therapy. One of them helps kids in the middle of the mother. One of them is really over the edge, and the other's extremely angry. So, you see, the vermin were part of Europe, and they got thrown out. They got disclaimed. They got murdered. And I'm not going to get into Gaza, because we all know it's a shit show. But you can't separate Kafka from Judaism.
Thank you so much for these comments. And there are some really excellent questions online as well. The first one from Muhammad asks about images of metamorphosis in Hidayah's work more broadly. I'm just going to read the whole question. As you know, in The Blind Owl, we find the arts, myths, and other aspects of the Eastern and the Western culture meet. It appears that besides the influence of Kafka's Metamorphosis on Hidayat, we should also look at the repeated images of metamorphosis in the Book of 1001 Nights and in The Blind Owl, as the atmosphere also metamorphosizes rather under the influence of the cabinet and of calligraphy, the expressionist, Dr. Calligraphy, the expressionist German movie. And so essentially they're asking about Hidayat the Blind Owl, being very much interested in these images of metamorphosis. Perhaps yourself, Banafsheh.
Okay, so they just want to know how I relate to Hidayat in my illustrations.
I think
Is that so?
images of metamorphosis more generally, if you have comments to add on that.
Yeah. So I can say that Metamorphosis and Blind Owl are they do have things in common as the milieu that the story is happening, like the surrealism for sure, and absurdism, and also the sort of despair and the curse that I earlier mentioned about the owl. So that's actually I kind of interconnected the symbolism in Kafka's Metamorphosis and Hidayat's Blind.
Sorry to, excuse me, can I add something? I mean, concerning, Hidayat's work, we have to remember that, when he was young, he was very much influenced by the motion picture, especially by the expressionist movies produced in Germany. When we look, at Hidayat's work, even atmosphere is metamorphosed. The construction, in Persian drawing, in Persian houses, we have got circular shapes. But in Hidayat's work, under the influence of expressionism, we found, deteriorated, broken shapes, broken lines. It's non-Persian in a sense. While, we have got Persian images in The Blind Owl, as you know, for example, the cypress tree, the image of water, etc. But, as far as the buildings are concerned, there is no similarity, no root in Persian culture. It appears, that's what I wanted to suggest here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So first of all, when I was illustrating Kafka's Metamorphosis, my focus was mainly on the metamorphosis because we had to illustrate the sequel, and we plan to publish this book. But for me, as something personal, I really, because I know that Hidayat was influenced very much by Kafka's work. They were contemporary, and Hidayat has also translated many of Kafka's work. So I thought that to compare these two work would be interesting, and I thought that I can also refer to some of the symbolism I found in Hidayat's Blind Owl.
I appreciate your work, but you see, there are also images of the metamorphosis of human beings turned into animals and turned into insects, for example. I was wondering whether you have looked at the Book of 1001 Night. Also, we have.
I actually have illustrated like 6 volumes of it.
Great.
Published in Iran.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I really appreciated your work. And other artists, great works. were presented today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blair, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
We discussed sort of humor, and I think the word absurdity came up a lot. You capture really aptly the different family members' differing reactions to his transformation. The mother's fainting, the sister's sort of care, and then the father's violence. I think we talked about the family being a unit of absurdity and isolation. Can you tell us a little bit more about?
Sure. Well, to me, the various ways that the other members of the family handled the trauma of Gregor is kind of in a nutshell what the rank and file of what most of us would do. You know, I don't know if we would necessarily have it within ourselves to look after Gregor in the way that he probably deserved to be looked after, because again, we would be so, probably on the verge of hysteria. I think if we were facing something as graphic as what happened to Gregor. So in a way, it kind of, I think that's one of the underlying, shall we say, motives of the book is to throw up in our face, really, and kind of challenge us. How would you do it? Like, would you be able to do it any differently? And how so? And let's, enumerate that or quantify that in some way or another. Because it's as we know, it's a very complex story, and psychologically, it's very, very complex. There's plenty of layers to it. One of them is humor, and the humor is a bit of an escape, from the harshness of the real horror of the story. So it's kind of like a melange of all of these kinds of flavors, shall we say, where they're challenging us on all kinds of psychic levels, where and even spiritual levels, I would like to say, where we're, the question that I had, the modern question being, what is a human being? What does that mean? What does it mean to be a human being? And we're sort of examining it again in the world. In world news, we're seeing how that question is bent and magnified and distorted, and in some cases celebrated with truth and honor. So again, it comes back to that individual value that we think we have. I know that I love to think that there is a nobility to me, but at the same time, there are plenty of things and thoughts that I have that bring that up, and it causes me to seriously question that as well. And that's just me being a little bit honest, but I'm not going to go into detail, and I'm not going to ask anybody else to go into detail either. But I know that generally that is pretty much true for most of us. So again, that is it's a testament to it really is a modern classic, isn't it? Yeah. It has survived these many years. It's 110 years old now since that thing was published. And it's been handled by all kinds of different theater groups, and it's been examined by all sorts of different artists, of which we are three. And look at the way just the three of us delved into the story. And I find it really interesting that the rest of you people in the room here, you're here obviously because you're interested in it. You're not just here for. Nobody's paying you to be here, are they?
I am paid.
Because you want to be here on some level. Right. Yes.
What I find really interesting is the three distinctive style of demonstrating how an individual who is highly valued, full functioning, sustaining the family,
yes,
overnight, literally, turns into its absolute opposite.
And then this distinctive styles of how the insecticization of a really distinguished person within the family.
Yes.
And how it happens. So
the other thing I just want to, this just came to mind, and I think it should be said, that that very opening line where he wakes up and he discovers that he's become an item of vermin or an insect of some kind or another. You know, it's easy to dismiss that and just say, "Oh, come on, that's that's the a fevered imagination of a writer." But the fact is, when we really look at the news of the world, and I'm not just talking about politically, but certainly it's true politically as well. But the news of the world is such that babies die, children die, for no apparent logical, rational reason. Sometimes yes, but there are plenty of examples that aren't that far away from what happened to Gregor.
Well, in a sense, it goes back to what you raised, linking to Holocaust experience, that people who were very well-functioning members, distinguished members of the community are othered overnight, and they became yeah. And you noted that too, right?
I can just add, Cronenberg did a film called The Fly.
Yeah.
That is the story.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, that was shot in my dad's office. I didn't realize it until I was watching it. Wow, it's that paint again. It's very strange.
Well, one thing I've been thinking is that we encounter this situation every single day on the streets of Toronto. Broken people, right? Something that their family thought never would happen to them. They never thought that they would end up on the street, drug addict, and then also people that have been injured in car accidents and are rendered paraplegic. They can no longer function in society the way they wanted to, and it just leaves you wondering, what can we do about this? It's almost an insoluble problem.
I can add, never mind the people in the street. We have all broken sometimes. And we've had to rebirth somehow. All of us.
That's right.
Let me ask you, Anson. Your origin is it it's Asia. From where?
Actually, I've never been to Asia.
No, but
Chinese. I'm Chinese.
Okay. So
my dad's he's born in Indonesia, but he's Chinese.
Okay.
He's just went there for work, and family went there for work, and he was born there.
But my
mom was from Taiwan. But
wow.
Yeah. So I've never been to Asia.
I can definitely see that part of the story. Because as you said, people come over, we treat, look at the US right now. They're treating immigrants like crap.
But what I find interesting in yours is the mirroring of the one and the other. That is sort of, when I say simultaneity, is that the other is the one and the other are humanity and insecticity are sort of intertwined, yes. Whereas in other cases, they are different beings.
Yep.
Actually, Anson, I wanted to ask about, we had an earlier conversation about how you all came to the text in very different ways, different places, different ways. And so you came to Metamorphosis because of this project, right? And you talked about how when you read it, you were a little bit like Banafsheh, relating to Gregor as an immigrant, as sort of an outsider. And you were also thinking about sort of this monstrous treatment of immigrants more recently. And so that was something that you wanted to capture in your work. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think when there's someone's coming in from somewhere, someone doesn't know anything about somebody, they treat them a lot of people do. And it's, from my experience, growing up, even though I've never been to Asia, they thought I was in Asia, from Asia. So it treated me really bad across Canada. I think my sister, my brother, I swear we were the pioneers of being in Canada, moving across, and we were treated so bad. Oh my goodness. Like, we're animals, we're dogs, we're this. There's even movies about this. Like, we saw all this stuff. It's like, and I'm the vermin. I'm the person that's, yeah, I'm just like everybody else. I don't see that. It's just put me off as, okay, you're from this said so many names, bullied, blah, 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 all that stuff. So it's like, it's very true. It's still happening. It's still happening. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of bullying. There's still a lot of unwantedness, or just, I don't understand you, so you're this. And you're discarded. And it's like this uphill battle. You have to kind of blend in society. You have to do certain things, accomplish certain things.
Or blend into society.
Yeah, blend or be accepted. So this sort of struggle. And I experienced that, even though I've never been in Asia, I was born in US and lived in Canada all my life. But yet I felt like I was a foreigner and an immigrant. It's this assumption, oh, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. And I have nightmare stories. They're endless about how I lived. Not until I got to Toronto, I felt like, okay, there's something here. It's more multicultural. Starting to blend in. But even then, it's totally accepted. Yeah.
Does that get captured in some of the images you showed us?
I hope so. Yeah. This sort of sense of innocence I have, but it's like I'm exploring a new world, but I'm kind of trapped within my innocence. They don't see me as the same way. They see me as, oh, you're interrupting, you don't belong here, you're taking away our jobs, you're whatever it is. I think it's still kind of true now to a lot of people that I know. It's very sad.
Especially a little bit to the south.
Yeah. And history seems to repeat itself, or never really never changes, even though we are changing.
Can I just add that in history, Canada tried to bring immigrants who were European white. And there was a hierarchy of who would be here. Scottish, Irish, English, maybe some Welsh. Then it went to Germany, French, then it went to Italy. Then they opened it up a bit. And other areas of the world had Spain, Spanish. So there is a hierarchy. Everyone who comes here does not belong here if they're not in that group.
And yet, I feel what I need to say, Anson, is that the power that you have is in your talent and in your ability to communicate, which you're already demonstrating right here. And that same goes for, I mean, it may not manifest the same way in every individual, but I want to believe that every individual has some core within themselves that is rare and powerful. And that, the trouble is when we start talking about all the ills and problems of the world, it just multiplies, it just telescopes almost endlessly. There's so much pain, there's so much suffering, there's so much unfairness. If you want to be looking for that, and by the way, even if you don't want to look for it, the newspaper or the television set will present it to you anyway, right? So the problem is that we can feel overwhelmed by all of this pain and suffering, and we can feel weak. And that, I think, that's where the real problem is, when we start to think of ourselves as weak and powerless and unable to make a difference. That is where I think the artist and the good writer and the good, when that magical thing happens, when you see a movie that really touches you, or you listen to a piece of music that really, really touches you, and you suddenly realize, I am so grateful to be a human being. And I welcome all other human beings as well. And, let's get together and have a party and enjoy each other, for heaven's sake, because there's so much that we can enjoy within ourselves and within each other.
And that romantic view that you just described shows well in all of your plates and your drawings. There is a romanticism embedded in it while telling a dark story.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it is. I mean, humor is part of it. That it has a laughter in it that turns your mood.
You see that again. See, that's the payment. Thank you so much. That was the payment that I needed to have, and we all share that payment, don't we? Right? So, and by projection, all the artists in the room here should be taking note of that, because that again is the kind of currency. When you can make that, when you sense that you've made that connection at that human level, it's not going to come to you in dollars and cents, although it's nice when that happens, but actually more potent than all, is again that sense when others walk away with that feeling of, I'm so glad to be a human being. And I welcome other human beings too, because that is the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And that
I'm going to turn to Leila, who's so diligently organized today's event. You have a question for us.
Thank you so much, Anson, Bash, and Blair, for such a wonderful presentation you had. We worked a lot and together, and we had a really good moment we shared together. And thank you so much. I have a question from Banafsheh. I know that during your illustration moment, you had like some of the pictures like common together and some of the symbols that you captured together. But was there any moment of peace for Gregor that you wanted to capture and illustrate, like within that story that you wanted to picture?
To be honest, no, there wasn't any moment of peace. I mean, I wasn't thinking of that, but all I wanted to capture in my illustrations was the agony and torture that he was going through. As I mentioned in my presentation, when I was new to Canada, because everything was new and I had no connections, and I really felt isolated. And to be honest, really like a vermin, like nobody cared about me. And because I didn't have anyone in Canada at first, and I didn't know a single person in Canada. So it was a harsh experience in the beginning, but little by little you build up your relationships and you find friends and you get on your feet. But no, it was just depicting the horror-like moments and all the grotesque atmosphere that was actually in the story, and it gave me a lot of joy to be able to capture that. It was like a self-healing. Yeah.
And now you have a great fan club.
Can I ask you, being from Iran, do you think that added to that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to talk about this. So, being an artist and being a woman on top is not easy in Iran because, well, that artists are different from other people in the society, and they are treated differently. So that actually was something that I was experiencing when I was back home. So I had that in my suitcase. And then the other thing was I am a woman, and women are like always treated as vermin or as someone, they are the other actually. Because in a society that are controlled and ruled by men in a very strict way, the religion and all those old sayings and everything that was against women was really a huge pressure for me. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to immigrate. So that was also one of the motives for me to think of illustrating Kafka's Metamorphosis and to contribute to it.
Could I add a thought? When you were answering Layla's question initially, you're telling your story, and then you're alluding to your experiences in Iran here, gave me the chills. I mean, because I remember meeting you for the very first time. You said, no friends, no. And I remember meeting you when you were pretty much in your early days here. I was probably one of your first 5 or 10 friends, I'm guessing. Yeah. And we connected right away. I'm not even sure why, but it's just through doing this project Metamorphosis, I realize almost, I'm not coming from Layla to you and sharing thoughts in the room and everything today about this project, but I grew up much like an immigrant and suffered, and I think I'm an illustrator. I'm very observant, very attentive to what's going on. I'm very complex. I remember people saying, Anson's very complex. But I'm kind of that's almost a curse, but also a good thing. So I connect with people pretty much right away. Doesn't matter who they are. I mean, I have that ability. When we met, we became almost immediately great friends. Immediate almost. And now we're doing projects here. We're having this meeting together with everybody. I'm invited to your projects, invited to shows. We've had shows together, and brought me closer to Blair. I already knew Blair, but now we're all even closer. It's just sort of.
And this lady here really is. She is really the firecracker that enabled all these things.
Yes, not a vermin. A beautiful vermin. Yeah. I'm trying to portray Gregor as a beautiful vermin. He's got a life in there. Yeah, he did all these things, but no one cares about him anymore.
I'm wondering whether we could have a dialogue between your experience as a woman in Iran and what Blair noted about humans, insects, and then read it differently, depict it differently. I'm